Hi everyone. I've chosen to sit down, which I hope's okay with the camera crew at the back. So don't worry, you won't be on YouTube or anything, guys. It'll be the back of your head and mostly me. So welcome. This first talk today is kind of two different topics, and I'll cover breastfeeding first, and then the second choice is about your healthcare choices in terms of public versus private. I welcome lots of questions. I'll be quite general about the overview. I might need to stand up. I'm a shorty. So a bit of an overview about your basically choices that you've got in each system and costs. But if you've got any questions, I'm really happy for you to put your hand up because normally if you're thinking about it, then someone else might be as well. So breastfeeding, and it's one of those things that they actually hold all-day education classes about. Which just points me to the Breastfeeding Association, which are right down in that back corner near the change rooms. Obviously, that's a whole association about breastfeeding, so they've got lots and lots of information. And they actually have a full day class that you can go to on getting some more information about breastfeeding. So if anyone wants them, I've got these out the front. So in pregnancy, your body amazingly starts to make really significant changes, getting you, just like when you grow a baby from an egg and a sperm, your body knows that it has to nourish a baby. So it's one of these things that I hear lots of people say, oh, well, I'll give it a go, I'll give it a try, hopefully it'll work. But it's strange that we never doubt that we'll be able to grow a baby well, because it's much the same process. Your body grows a baby, it develops it normally, and it exits it when it's ready to come out. So it's much the same process that your breasts know that they've got to make milk. They'll make the right kind of milk in the right volumes for your baby at the right time. Because obviously this is a little bit of a larger baby. They don't come out this big, don't worry. This is a nice healthy 3-month-old. But a new baby at say 3.5, 3.8 kilos would on average maybe have on day one, it might have 1 or 2 meals. So their belly's a tiny, tiny little belly. And over the next week or so, their belly increases in size to take maybe 30 or 40 mils. And then a few weeks later, it'll take 70 or 80 mils in a feed. And then by 6 weeks, most babies are having, depending on their size, on average about 120 to 140 mils each feed. So your body naturally makes this change from day 1 to 6 weeks to increase the volume, the quality and the quantity of milk that that particular baby needs. And it's not something that we can make happen. It's lots of, we're very much a doing society. We work harder to get more money, and the more effort in, the more things work. But unfortunately in this process, it's a lot of trust. It's trusting that your body knows what it's doing and that it's going to make the right quality and quantity of milk. So I find lots of new parents that go to me, oh, well, what can I do to make the milk better or bigger? And I'm like, you actually should really just do nothing. Just rest and take it easy and, spend some more time feeding your baby and that will happen. And they're like, no, it must be a tablet or a potion. And there are some tablets and potions and lotions, but they're more for the abnormal realm. And, it's just about trust. So quantity and quality is something that you do get a lot of information in the hospital. In terms of that suck, it's quite interesting to kind of really wrap your head around how a baby sucks milk out of your breast. So we normally think, like when we have a drink, we use our cheek muscles. So we kind of suck things down, or when you suck something through a straw, your cheeks suck in. But in reality, your baby squishes your nipple against the roof of its mouth. So if you run your tongue over the roof of your mouth, you'll feel that it's hard and soft. Right at the back, you've got a soft palate. And so that's where the end of your nipple needs to be, because your baby has a small version of a mouth. So hard, soft. So if your nipple is on the hard palate, every time the baby rolls its tongue and squeezes your nipple, it pinches it. So that's where we get our nipple damage, cracking, bleeding, grazes, because it's a pinching. So it's like if you didn't wear pants and you crawled around on the carpet all day, end of the day your knees would have grazes on them. But if you wore thicker pants or you were able to hover off the ground so there was no contact, they might still be a bit tender, but they shouldn't be grazed. So it's impossible to expect that you've never used your nipples in that role before. You never know what you guys might get up to, but normally you've not. So your nipples are going to be tender initially, but they shouldn't be grazed and bleeding. So the grazing and bleeding is because of that contact of the nipple being pinched against the hard palate. Lots of people go, well, how do I know when the nipple's in the wrong spot? And I guess that's the broad concepts of positioning and attachment that we talk about. So it's about positioning your baby the right way so that it can attach. So if you're going to have your baby like this, with its chest facing upwards, it's more than likely going to roll its head up. So then even if it attaches to the nipple properly, the nipple's in the right spot, right on the junction of the hard and soft palate, as soon as it's relaxing into its suck, it's more likely to shift. Therefore, the nipple will slip. Even, you can imagine, 2 millimeters and bang, we're back onto hard palate. And then we're into pain, tears, and dramas. So if you roll the baby's chest to your chest, then that can't happen because the baby's focus is towards the nipple. So that's why we say chest to chest and nose to nipple. So the baby doesn't, like you can imagine if you have the baby here and you push your boob right across, once you let that go, the nipple's going to change placement as well. The other, so if you've still got that little image of your head, knowing that you've got to have a mouthful, baby's mouth has to be full of nipple because the nipple needs to be all the way back at the end of the mouth. There's no special light that comes on for you to go, yes, nailed it, it's in the right spot. And it's a very subjective thing. So you'll have midwives come in and they'll go, so am I attaching well? And you're like, oh, it looks okay. How does it feel? And you're like, oh, I don't know, it feels a bit strange to me. So initially it's going to feel very strange, as I said, depending on what you do in your spare time. It's a very intense feeling. Your nipple is really drawn out and it probably has never been like that before. So the feeling is not a good indication. You can imagine knowing where that placement is in your mouth. The cheeks should be full. So if the cheeks are sucking in like that, then there's some empty space. So there's some space that should have nipple in it. So if you're seeing cheeks suck in, you think, aha, you are not in the right spot, little baby. And you take them off and you reattach them. And I'm not really going to go through attachment itself because it's more of a one-on-one conversation to get that right. But it's kind of that understanding in your own mind about the whole concept that you're trying to achieve. So there shouldn't be a cheek sucking in and you shouldn't hear clicking or slurping because, again, if the nipple's in the wrong spot, every time the baby rolls its tongue, it clicks against the hard palate when there should be nipple there. So you should see nice full cheeks. You shouldn't hear any slurping or clicking. And it should be strange but not terrible. As days progress and you get more confident in what you're doing, you'll go, I can feel a bit of pinching here. And you'll know that you'll see those other two things and you'll think, right, off you get your little monkey and you put them on properly so that they get a big mouth full of nipple and therefore that nipple isn't getting that damage from rolling on the hard palate. Make sense? And it's logic. It's like how babies come out. Like there's not a special mystery. There's a cervix that's got to open. Baby has to come through. So breasts, they need stimulation. So they need a baby attaching to them in that first bit. There's some seats out the front. I know it's a little, I won't bite you. So they need the stimulation for the hormone to make the milk come in. So the first few days you think, oh, well, it's not really getting anything anyway, but it's about the stimulation to bring the milk in. And it's about getting the attachment right and knowing that they only get 1 or 2 mils, and that's exactly what they need. I could talk about breastfeeding all day, but we haven't got all day. It's only got 10 minutes. So the other topic I was going to talk about, which kind of doesn't really go together with this at all, is public versus private and choosing the right facility to have your baby. And knowing, I guess I'm in an unbiased role. So I am a private practitioner, so I don't work for a public hospital or a private hospital. So I guess I've worked in both. And so I find that giving women advice, it's best to look at what outcome you want. So is it really important that at the birth you know the doctor? I want to know the doctor. I want a relationship with the doctor and I want a doctor. So then you're going to obviously pick a private obstetrician and more than likely have your baby in a private hospital. If you're like, midwives are great, which I know you're all thinking, if you want to know the midwife and you want to have a fairly good chance that you're going to have that midwife look after you in labour, then you're going to more than likely pick a public hospital. But then you won't know the doctor. So if the hits the fan, then it's going to be a random doctor you've never met that's well qualified, and they'll roll on in, save the day, and you'll think, oh, thank you so much, doctor, and you probably won't even know their name, but you'll know the midwife. There's midwifery group practice in a lot of our big metropolitan hospitals, so Women's and Children's, Flinders, Lowell McEwen. So that's a chance where you get to meet the same midwife along the pregnancy. They look after you all of the visits. If something, that's okay, becomes abnormal, they'll refer you to a doctor. So it's not that you're making a bad choice where you don't get that help if you need it. And you might get care from both a doctor and a midwife in the pregnancy. Things turn astray in the labour, then you'll have a doctor that will absolutely be there. And then postnatally, in a lot of those models, you do get the midwife that visits you for about 6 weeks after, providing that support at home, weighing and breastfeeding and all of that kind of advice. In the private sector, you would see the doctor every visit and you would pay for that. Just like when you see a GP, there's not many doctors in private practice that bulk bill, so it attracts a gap of about $30 or $40 with each visit. You have a lump sum payment that's their on-call, they call it an on-call rate. And it's for them to be available for you whenever you need them. So, you fall over in the car park and you need to be monitored in hospital, that doctor comes and sees you, makes sure everything's okay, and then follows it up. And you don't pay for that. That's a part of that lump sum payment. So expect to be out of pocket about, depending on that payment, about $2,500-ish. There's obviously variations of that. And then there's a thing called the extended Medicare safety net. So once you spend over about $1,500 in a year, you get more of your Medicare rebate. So when you see the doctor at an appointment, instead of getting $45 back, you might get $65 because Medicare recognises you've spent so much money. Whereas if you go to the public sector, you never put your hand in your pocket until it comes tax time. You really already paid for it. When I said about outcome, so it's knowing that in somewhere like Women's and Children's, Flinders, Lowell McEwen, something like a water birth is quite accepted. It's supported. It's okay. So if you were looking at, you really wanted that really natural experience with a midwife in a water birth or a really natural birth, that's where you're going to get that. If you go into a private hospital wanting that, they're very happy for you to use the water in labour, but not to have the baby in. And it's all about insurance. In our world, all about insurance these days. So you need to know that before you get into it, because you might be really disappointed, or you might expect that you're going to know the midwife that looks after you in labour, and you won't. It would be a hospital midwife. Postnatally, a lot of the private hospitals that are all here today, they have clinics that you can come back to. There's some midwives like me out there that are we've registered as Medicare providers, so we're just like GPs in terms that you come and see us and we bill most of our visits through Medicare, and you pay a small gap. So that's an option, even if you do pick the private model, but you still want a midwife to see you at home. You can engage a private midwife to provide that service. Or if you're with the public sector in a group practice, that's all happens. Or in the other streams of care, you would come back into a clinic in the hospital, or the midwife might come and see you once or twice at home. And then child and youth health kind of kick in, which is another government service. Unfortunately, there's a lot of antenatal education and support, and there's a really big, huge black hole where a lot of women fall into after their babies are born. There's not a huge amount of service, unfortunately, and you have to be quite savvy in trying to find it. Like, there's only 11 eligible midwives in South Australia like me that provide that service. So it's not a big thing yet. Maybe in 5 years' time it'll be a bit bigger. Did anyone have any questions on that, or a bit confused with what they're choosing or what they've got available? No? Yes? That's right. So it was just a question about the if you weren't in a group practice but in a bigger public hospital and trying to engage a private midwife. Um, and I've been very careful about steering away from independent midwifery, which is more of the home birthing focus. So this is very much a Medicare-based service. So if you come to the Midwives Australia stand, we've got lots of information. And there's not a huge amount of us available, and it's all referral-based. Like if you go and see a specialist, you need a referral, so it's not that hard to come by. Yes, excellent. All right, well, I think I'm about to get the wind up. So thank you. And if you do have any questions, we've got some free pregnancy and postnatal health checks that we're doing all day as well. And we're just happy to help give you some advice if you need to. Thanks very much.